Hello, friends. Hello, everybody. Thanks for joining me. And I really, really appreciate this opportunity to share with you. Today, we have some really exciting information that I think you're all going to find very, very interesting. We're going to put this into a 45-minute time slot. So our topic today is improving cognition and memory. We're going to add some movement in there too. Slowing dementia progression and turning short-term memory into long-term memory. The first thing I'd like to do is share with you that I do not have any conflicts of interest. I'm not being paid for anything I say or any product that I talk about. Anything I share about with you comes from me because it's something I believe in and I want to share with you and I want you to know about, including tools that we use about later on. Okay, no contracts, no conflicts of interest. All right, let's move forward. The brain, cognition, memory, and neural circuitry. This is all a really big deal. All right. Today, I have one primary goal for everybody. Think about this. I really want you to think about this as we go through today. The primary objective is I want you to hyper focus. I'm going to be as succinct as possible in delivering the information that's coming your way. I'll deliver it. I'll pause slightly here and there. I hope you're writing notes. You're all welcome to a copy of this slideshow if you want it. Share my email at the end. Hyper focus, pay attention. You'll see why after we go through. The first thing we're going to start with might seem a little odd, maybe even ridiculous to some. But here's what it is. We're going to play this little game, and it's going to come up throughout the 45 minutes today. All right? I want you to look at these groups of 3 words. I want you to memorize them. So this is a memory exercise example. Our first group of 3, green, cucumber, pickle. Well, cucumbers are usually green, and you can make pickles out of cucumbers. There's a relationship there. All right. Next, yellow, corn, banana. Corn and banana are yellow, usually. Red, tomato, and pizza. Look at those. I'll give you about 20 more seconds. Look at those. Write them down. Hyper focus. Remember them. You'll see why in a little bit. All right? Let's move forward. Don't worry, you'll see these again. We're going to talk a lot about the brain. Let's talk about some facts. All right? The brain, the central nervous system, and the peripheral nervous systems are wired together in one continual loop. The brain and this loop, it is shaped by our experiences and our environment. The things you learn, your environment, growing up, school, home, grandparents' house, Uncle Louie's house, friends' homes, playing in the playground, things you learn. I have a granddaughter who turned 1 year old last week. I speak to her primarily in Spanish because I can, and I want her to learn Spanish. She's going to be shaped by her environment just as we all are. No matter how old we are, hopefully we can, to some degree at least, choose our experiences. So I want you to think about this, hyper-focus, and realize that you hopefully can choose your experiences and hopefully choose your environment, and to do so wisely. Why? You could choose to watch TV. I do it. I also choose to read a lot of books. Probably read about 2 books, maybe 3 per week. I choose this because I learn. This helps to shape my level of knowledge so that I can implement more with the people who I help to help them to live a better quality of life. I could go off on this. By the way, there's going to be, there will be more education on this popping up here and there in the future about subtopics that we're talking about. All right? Remember, the brain is shaped by its experiences and your environment. Now, everything we're going to talk about today is not rocket science, but I want you to think about some random facts. If you think about the human body, the human being, we are designed to move. These words don't come from me. I didn't make anything up in this presentation. I'm not smart enough to do that. But I take from others and I learn. For example, those exact words are one of the first sentences said in an interview I did last year with Harvard professor, medical doctor, medical school professor, Dr. John Rady, who has also written several best-selling books about the brain. Humans are designed to move. For example, many of us, probably most of us, hopefully if we're in the snow, like we had a snowstorm here last night, we have a place to live and occupy that is warm. Well, I do. I have a furnace in my house. Okay. I have heat in my car. There's heat in my clinic. Okay. It's not warm out. But think about this. It's almost as if we're preparing for a winter that never arrives. Right? Because we're not living in the primal ages anymore. We have electricity. Right? We have housing, hopefully. So we don't need to rely on fire. We don't need to rely on that for heat and light. Okay, we don't have to go out. Most of us probably don't go out and hunt and gather our food. Technology, the next bullet. And lifestyles, our lifestyle because of technology, because of work environment. Well, it tends to lead to a sedentary lifestyle. Okay, we do not need to move as we used to accomplish what we need to accomplish. I can pay my bills on my iPhone. I can deposit money and transfer money on my iPhone on the apps. We all can do it if we have a smartphone. We're preparing for the winter that never comes because it's really never winter because we're not outside all the time. What does this have to do with memory? You'll see. What does it have to do with dementia? You'll see. Okay. So it's really not winter. I mean, yeah, it could be winter, but I'm warm. Okay. And I'm eating too much. Well, these days I'm not, but I have, and many of us are eating too much. Why? Because we can. Okay. So technology and lifestyles tend to lead to more sedentary situations, which leads us to the bottom bullet point, which is we need to move with intention. We need to move on purpose. It's very, very important. These are random facts. Let's go on to some more. Your health is really dictated by your lifestyle. Okay. Now, we have situations about correlations we'll talk about, a lot about longevity coming up. But for example, pills versus movement. Well, we need our medications. I take medications, okay? I need to take certain ones. I've been able to get off of some medications. But that's because I'm moving and I'm exercising, all right? Medicine versus exercise. We need medicine, right? In the modern age, without medicine, without so many different things, I wouldn't have sight. I've had cornea transplants. Well, I'm grateful to God for this and the doctors. I do not take this for advantage, but we have a lot of situations where medicine and pills seem to be prescribed over movement and exercise, and we need to be moving and exercising. Okay. Also, our overall activity has diminished, especially I deal with a lot of elderly. They're retired. I don't have anyone, I don't think, over my average age of my patient is 81 years old. None of them are working. Okay, that's fine. The ones who are active are doing better than the ones who are not active. Because when we retire, especially, and for a lot of us, even before then, working from home, not having to go anywhere, this is leading to, and retirement can lead to diminished activity. We see it all the time. So Pills and medicine are necessary, but exercise and movement is necessary. Okay. More active lifestyle is necessary for most people. More random facts. We'd like to have some goals that we implement. For example, increase and improve the lifespan. Move better and move more. We want to realize there is a relationship between falls and mortality. Okay, so statistically, if you want any citations on anything from this slideshow and presentations, please let me know and I will send them to you. There's a long bibliography that goes with this. A recent study shows that over the age of 65, the leading cause of death are complications from a fall. Okay, don't have to have a movement disorder to fall down. Could just be not moving as well, so your balance is compromised. There's a relationship between falling and mortality. We want to be able to improve our movement and our multitasking and our dual tasking abilities because we want to reduce falls and the risk of falling. Let's talk about our lifespan. Longevity is directly correlated with your level of strength, your amount of strength. Strength is a huge factor in poor balance, poor movement, falling down, and decreased longevity. Strength does so much for us. We could talk about that in a complete different webinar for hours. Strength is absolutely one of the most important things for us to be working on. Mobility, being mobile and staying mobile, movement. We need to be moving. Our level of cardiovascular fitness or health is directly correlated with our longevity. And of course, our cognitive abilities are actually affected by everything above. Okay, we'll get into that more. Let's talk about brain health. So if we summarize all of this, movement plus cognitive and memory exercises plus a healthy dietary lifestyle plus adequate sleep not only equals optimal health, optimal movement, but optimal brain health. Other words from Dr. John Rady, who I interviewed again last year, are the part of the body that probably benefits most from exercise, any kind of exercise, is the brain. So many things happen in the brain. We'll talk about it in a little while. Okay. Oh, wait. What are those words again? Okay, I want to go through those words. We have, you might have caught the first one. We have 3 sets of words. What's the first one? Each one starts with a color, and there's something correlating with the color underneath it. 3 groups of 3. Ready? First one, green cucumber pickle. Who remembered that? Second group, who's got it? Yes, yellow corn banana. Third group, who's got it? Red tomato pizza. Good. You'll see this again. I want you to think about this. So hyper focus, memorize these words, because at some point, if you do this enough, it will become long-term memory. Right now, it's short-term. Let's talk about the brain and neural circuitry. When a neural circuit is compromised, other circuits will be developed. And we're going to use an example here. All right. Parkinson's disease will be the example, but it just could be, dementia, cognitive decline, Alzheimer's, many different factors that fall into compromised neural circuitry, but we'll use Parkinson's. All right. So in the person living with Parkinson's, really in everybody, we want to achieve a goal of helping them to live a full and active lifestyle. We would like to slow disease progression. We'd like to reduce the risk of falling because in Parkinson's, that's a big deal. We want to positively impact cognition, movement, and quality of life for the person with the movement disorder and the caregiver. Caregivers don't get enough credit a lot of times, and they do an awful lot of work. And let's just say another thing we could break out and do a whole nother webinar on is genetic predisposition to certain diseases, movement disorders, diagnoses, whatever. Exercise, cognitive, right? Memory, physical, if you're genetically predisposed to having something like one of these different movement disorders or diagnosis, we may be able to delay the disease onset through the techniques that we'll talk about here in this presentation. All right. Maybe you won't ever get any kind of diagnosis. Wouldn't that be great if you have a couple of copies of the APOE4 gene, which will boost up your risk of getting Alzheimer's by a lot? But what if you do the things you need to do or you should be doing that can help to delay the onset, or maybe just completely bypass it and you never get it, right? Good. All right. So, for example, we talked about this real quick. What's our most primary concern for the person with Parkinson's? Well, it's falling. They're at a much higher risk of falls and getting injured. Okay, number one cause of mortality or death, not to scare you, but it's true. In the Parkinson's population are complications from a fall. It might not be the fall, but maybe they fall down, they have to go to the hospital, they're in the hospital for a month, they get pneumonia, COVID, and they die. Well, that's just no good, right? So we want to train to improve movement, reaction time, multitasking abilities. So another thing that Dr. Rady talks about, and of course Andrew Huberman from Stanford and Dr. David Sinclair and countless others talk about, is movement lights up the brain. Do you know that there are countless studies, and even some recent ones, that show that walking, something as simple as walking, has so many benefits for not only your body, but your brain. Isn't this amazing? Movement lights up the brain. Electronically, it lights it up with extra synaptic firing patterns that are happening between neurons and extra neurochemicals that are produced that help to improve and sustain brain health. All right. This is a random slide that I just threw in at this point because it seemed like a good place to do it. When we correlate learning and movement, there is a correlation between movement and learning, exercise and learning. But we can add in some other elements to this. Dr. John Rady's book called Go Wild, which I highly recommend everybody buy. It's not expensive. Of course, that's subjective, but probably $10, $12 online, right? And in our interview last year, he talks about the combination of gamifying your exercise. Okay, we do a lot of that here at my clinic. Talk about it later. So play, gamify what you do when you move, and it's going to be probably more fun. If you enjoy it, you're more likely to do it. I always tell people, do things you like to do, because if you try to do things you don't like to do, you probably won't do them, so you're not going to get the benefits of exercise. So make it fun. Make it something you will do. So we need to move, have fun doing it. Do it outdoors if you can, because there's so many advantages. And he talks about this in his book, Go Wild, about being outdoors, the environment, the natural light from above. Even if it's cloudy, you're still getting natural light from above. Really good for your wake-sleep cycle, and really good for your immune system and the negative ions, and just the input to the brain, auditory-wise and visually outdoors, is phenomenal. If we go to the bottom too, try to move around barefoot and move barefoot outdoors and have fun doing it. Okay, and we can throw music in. Now, music might just be the sound of the wind, the birds, and all that. That's music to me. But if you're not outdoors, maybe throw on some music, because music can help us to stimulate brain activity, improve brain health, and help us to move better. So do all those things at once. You got a winning situation. Let's look at this. We want to retrain the brain so we can improve movement and reduce fall risk. So back to our Parkinson's example. All right, the substantia nigra is an area in the midbrain housed inside of the basal ganglia. In Parkinson's, this is an area which is highly affected, and this is important to know because it's also a primal movement control center as humans, evolved over the millenniums. I mean, the substantia nigra is a primal movement control center. It's also a dopamine production center. So if you're lacking adequate amount of dopamine neurotransmitter to have your brain tell your body what to do and move efficiently and not freeze or have akinesia where you can't get started, or all kinds of other movement issues. Well, if the brain cells are dying, like as they are in substantia nigra in Parkinson's, and in the it's in the hippocampus in the Alzheimer's population. Okay, so we know that no matter what area of the brain is affected, the brain is going to naturally outsource to cerebellum, frontal area, and other areas as well. I mean, there's a whole anatomy here we could go through, but it will outsource to them to develop them as movement control centers, or whatever the responsibility is that they had that there is diminished now. Like in Alzheimer's, could be, or dementia, it could be hippocampus or a couple other areas where brain cells are dying and your memory is affected. Well, you can build new memory, okay, because we have neuroplasticity, bottom of the slide. The brain has the ability to reorganize and create new neural pathways to adapt as it needs, right? So Parkinson's, we can learn to move better. We can learn to control our movement better so we are more efficient, we're safer, and we reduce risk of falling. Cognitive decline accompanies Parkinson's very often, okay? So it's a different situation than Alzheimer's and dementia. However, in any of the situations, mild cognitive decline, dementia, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, anyone affected with memory or cognitive issues, we can have the brain work to our advantage by creating new neural pathways. But it takes hyper focus, because a lot of times the area that's being used to create or take on the new responsibilities is not the intended brain anatomy for that responsibility. So we have to work extra hard to create these abilities, to improve our memory, to improve our movement. Right. Now let's go through an example of neuroplasticity, because it's pretty simple, really, right? You know the old saying, it's just like riding a bike. Well, you get on a bike, you learn how to ride it. You're rusty for a while. You learn after a few days or whatever, and then you're on and you go. And the more you do it, the better you get. You're riding and riding and riding for years and years and years. And then for some reason, at some point, you're not riding anymore. But when you get back on after a couple of years, a few months, could be, maybe it's 10, 20 years. God forbid, unless you have like an aneurysm or a stroke or some kind of traumatic brain injury or concussion. Well, the circuitry that was formed to create the pattern of allowing you to be able to ride the bicycle is still there. It just hasn't been used in a while. So you get on the bike, and after 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 minutes, whatever, there you go. It's all fired up again. Okay, because neurons that fire together wire together. As you look to the right image on the right, you see these bright synapses of light. Well, those are intended to represent synaptic firing patterns. Okay, because these neurons are reaching out to other neurons so they can connect. And when you make these connections, you develop abilities. Drive a car, learn a language, learn a new skill. I'm learning Spanish. I'm probably 75, 80% fluent now. It's taken me a lot of hard work and hyper focus, but I practice every single day. And I have conversations in Spanish every single day. Learn to play a musical instrument, train to move better, walking, rotations, dual tasking, balance, mobility, stability, agility. You learn these things. You gain these abilities by hyper focusing. Practice, practice, practice. These are just some examples. In our clinic, in our methodology here at Neuromotor Training, LLC, we want to challenge the person with Parkinson's or whatever, anybody. They don't have to have a diagnosis. I do this stuff myself, but we want to challenge them by implementing cognitive training during focused movement. And I put in a safe environment because we want to challenge them and push them, and we want them to not quite get it right, but we want them to come close to it. And then once they get really good at something, we have to up the game. Okay, because one of the things I don't have written down on the slide here I want you to think about is developing, as it says here at the bottom, developing improved movement skills that transfer to daily activities of daily living. Well, This is very important, but we need to hyper focus. We need to pay attention while we're doing these things. It's very, very important to focus on every move, every memory task. Think about the words I gave you. I gave you 9 words, 3 groups of 3 words. They're going to come up again. I want you to think about them and remember, but hyper focus, right? Because, all right, and if you get it wrong, this is what I want to say is I don't have written down. If you get it wrong, that's not a bad thing. As a matter of fact, our nervous systems, research out of Stanford from the Huberman lab and other researchers there, they show that our body and our nervous systems, our peripheral, our central, and our brain, because they're all looped together, remember, if one of them gets cut, then we have a problem. Okay, we don't have the continual loop of feedback information going on. Well, we got a problem. So they're in a loop. They learn from making mistakes. You need to get things wrong in order to get them right. You need to get things wrong first, and then a little less wrong, and or wrong could be a negative word in some people's minds. Maybe it's wrong, like you say the wrong 3 words, cucumber, Cadillac, pickle. Well, Cadillac's not one of the words. Yeah, you could have a green Cadillac, but I didn't give you that word, so that's just wrong. Okay, green cucumber pickle, not Cadillac pickle. Just an example, that's wrong. Cadillac is wrong. So, but maybe it's a different situation where it's not wrong, but it's less than optimal. Okay, and we want to make it optimal to train the body or the brain to do something better. All right, so as soon as they get proficient, though, it's time to up the game because we need to keep challenging. All right, neurons of fire wire together. Frequent and repetitive training to develop a new ability or skill causes formation of synaptic firing patterns between neurons in the brain. And more properly worded is the synaptic firing patterns cause the formation. Okay, that's what it's supposed to say. Through regular training and repetition and practice, these new neural firing patterns are reinforced. And the more solid these connections become, the better we can perform the skills, whether it's movement, memory, or cognition. Now, here's something I want you to really pay attention to, because this is the most important thing of all in this whole presentation. Maximizing neuroplasticity potential. How are we going to do this? Well, it's actually really simple, but simple doesn't mean it's easy, but is super simple. Okay, so first you need to realize that children and young adult brains are highly neuroplastic. Exposure alone can prompt the creation of new neural circuitry, right? I'm going to be talking to my granddaughters in Spanish. My grandson, when he comes and is part of this world, and I meet him in August, you know what? They're going to learn Spanish, and they're not even going to try because exposure will teach them. But as I said in the beginning, the brain customizes itself based on experiences and environment. Okay. Now, adult brains are less plastic. So if you look at the statistics, basically it's about 25 years old where things change, and you know the ability for the brain to change becomes more difficult. Okay, we need to actually opt to choose, let's say, how we direct our attention. All right, so we call this, and these are the words of Dr. Andrew Huberman, an amazing gentleman, self-directed adaptive plasticity. Okay, we are going to direct our attention and choose to adapt to something new that we're trying to learn, because we know that we can learn things new. You're learning something today, I hope, right? We direct the changes in our brain. We make our brain experience changes by implementing 2 primary steps. Okay. Now, age plays a role in all this, as we just learned to some degree, but it plays more. The older we get, the harder it gets. All right. Step 1. It's 2 steps. It's really simple. I'm going to explain how it works. We need to have extreme focus, hyper focus. I call it chunking. Okay. We chunk bits of information or activities together, or we do something. We chunk it so that we have 30 seconds, 1 minute, 2 minutes. We hyper focus. We get real good at it, and then we rest. Short bouts of extreme focus and deliberate effort. This is going to be the key. right? Intention. Like I said, we need to move with intention. We need to think with intention. We need to act with intention. This whole thing about deliberate effort and short bouts of extreme focus is going to vary from person to person and day to day for some, right? Depending on how we feel and what our attention span is. But we need to push ourselves and always try to seek further than we think we can, safely, of course. When we're doing this, though, we have this neurochemical called noradrenaline, and this is released during periods of focus. And this is going to cause the feeling of strain, discomfort, or agitation during the focused effort, especially towards the last parts of it. Those last 10, 15 seconds of some focused cognitive exercise or whatever, is strain and extreme, discomfort can be experienced. All right. But also, very important to know is during this focused effort, another chemical called acetylcholine is released. And it's released at the synapses that are involved of what is being learned. So you're in a learning event, learning a new movement, learning a new cognition thing, memory thing, a new skill. Synapses are occurring in different parts of the brain for different things. At the synapses, acetylcholine is released. And guess what? It marks the neurons for strengthening. All right, now, one thing I want to say before we go to step 2. So basically, step 1 is do whatever you're trying to learn. Practice hard. Do as long as you can. Push yourself. It could be 30 seconds. It might be a half an hour, whatever it is. Do it. Push yourself. Feel the agitation. Feel the effort and maybe strain and some discomfort. Don't hurt yourself, kill yourself, but push yourself. But think of this while you're doing it. Okay, that's step 1. Maybe attach a reward to it, like, oh, this is me getting better. This is me getting improving my memory. This is me improving my balance. Think about that because it's going to work. Step 2, sleep. Sleep. Now, here's a whole another thing I've talked about in the past in various webinars about sleep and how to optimize. So if you have questions, you can let me know about sleep. We can talk about how to manage it effectively without medications, hopefully. Okay, so sleep-like state, or sleep is best. Meditation's good. A short nap is fine, but sleep. Neural pathways and circuitry are best formed and strengthened during sleep. There you go. Okay, the acetylcholine, it marks the neurons. And then while you're sleeping, they become more connected together. Then after a while, what happens is, you ever do something all of a sudden like 2-3 weeks into it or a few days or whatever, and then one day you wake up, it's like, boom, I got it. That's because you probably practiced it enough with enough intention and focus that enough of the neurochemical soup was happening, and you slept enough so that one day, boom, you got it. It's like, boom, wiring is now complete, and you can now do or remember this thing or perform this task. All right, let's go through those 3 words one more time. Last time you're going to see them. It's just an example. I want to turn this into a long-term memory for you, as ridiculous as it is. What are the first 3 words? Okay, green cucumber pickle. Second set of 3, yep, yellow corn banana. Third set of 3, red tomato pizza. You got it. All right. If you keep doing this, you'll remember this for the rest of your life. Does it matter? These words don't matter. But what matters is the ability to remember things. This is an example. You can even remember something ridiculous like this. Okay? All right, so we want to talk about a little bit here about benefits of cognitive training during movement. All right, we train both motor and cognition at the same time, all in an effort to improve movement, stability, functionality, and help reduce or eliminate falls. Okay, I want to give you some examples of cognitive training. There are many, many, many domains of cognition. Okay, I've written 2 books. You hear about them later. I've written about a lot of them, and memory domains in the books too. But we'll go through some primary ones here. Let's say you're doing some type of movement. Maybe you're just throwing punches, or you're running in place, or maybe something maybe you're a little more challenging. If you can, you're walking sideways with your feet crossing each other. Okay, cross body patterns. And then I say, hey, I want you to tell me the names of all of your siblings, or every kitchen appliance you can think of, or recite the alphabet, or I say the capital of a state, you spell it for me. I say this name of a state, you give me the capital and spell it for me. Then maybe spell it backwards. Okay, do some math problems. Well, say these kind of things are what we call direct recall. They fall in the domain of direct recall. It's memory, but it's also cognition. So what we're doing is we're firing up this type of firing pattern during a focused movement so we can learn to multitask better. But wait, there's more, because we also have what we call spatial awareness. We could have you doing some activity, you're moving, you're doing some kind of a fairly sophisticated movement or whatever you're able to do and challenge yourself. And then I say, hey, I want you to get in your car mentally in our parking lot here, and I want you to take me to your neurologist's office. I want you to take me to your favorite restaurant. And when you do, I back out, I turn right on Genesee Street. I go 0.7 miles. I turn left on Hinsdale Road. I get on right on the bypass, and I go over to 690 East, and I get off at Teal, and I go to the stop sign, and there's 3 stoplights, and then I turn left on whatever, and boom. Okay, you're doing 2 things at once, cognition plus movement. However, spatial awareness, when you're recalling how to get from one place to another, maybe it's just walking across the campus. Oh, I have to go across a class. Or, I'm a professor. I had a professor who had Parkinson's when I was in school a few years ago. Yeah, his office on the other side of the campus. Well, you have like 8 different ways to get to your classroom or your lecture hall. Tell me one of the ways. All right. So while you're describing this moving event, you're moving mentally through things you're describing, and you're moving, a different part of the brain is firing up when you're using spatial awareness than you are the first example of direct recall. Okay, and then another thing would be decision. This is also a little bit ties in with reaction training, reactive training, reaction time. We could be boxing, and I say, okay, you're right to my right, you're left to my right. So when I say right, you're hitting right to right. Your right hand hits my glove. If I say left, it's your left hits. Or maybe I have blue over here on a glove and green over here. Okay, so whenever I say blue, your right hits because it's on my right mitt, green hits the left. Or maybe we go into something a level deeper in sophistication. I say it's opposite. Whatever I say is opposite, okay? I say right, you hit left. I say blue, you hit green, and vice versa. Okay, so that's a very simple, but actually interesting way to get into decision-making forms of cognition. And we can get so creative with all these domains. It's very, very interesting. Okay, we're going to be super creative. All right, so moving and thinking, and yet that decision-making fires up yet a different area of the brain or areas of the brain than spatial or direct recall. So we want to fire up as much as possible so that we can train as much as possible to improve movement as much as possible, reaction time, cognition, memory, and improve quality of life, reduce fall risk, and reduce falls. Let's move on. Problem solving is another one. This is kind of like a combination of spatial and decision, because it could be like at Parkour East London when I teach over there. They have obstacles. Parkour is like, basically it's you got to get on the other side of an obstacle. You're going to go over it, under it, around it, or through it. So you have spatial, you're looking at space, but you're also making decisions. It's an amazing, beautiful exercise for the body and the brain. We have other examples here. Again, you can pause and look at this later, or you can ask me to send it to you, and I'll send you the slideshow. Okay, lots of different things. One of the final things I'd like to talk about, though, is the importance of exercise, especially cardio. All right, so at this point still, the best known example or method of slowing disease progression in, let's say, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, dementia, or maybe hoping to delay the onset is cardio. Why? Well, yes, we get blood and oxygen to the brain, so that's very good, and we need that. And again, if you're in a sedentary situation, you want to try to get you moving. You want to seek appropriate help if needed and make sure they're not pushing you too hard, But at the same time, we want to push ourselves and work towards improving. But the creation of brain-derived neurotrophic factors, absolutely one of the most important things that's written about in John Rady's books and so many other books and research papers. Brain-derived neurotrophic factor is also known as miracle grow for the brain. What happens when this is created, and how is it created? Well, it's created by movement. Number one is the most creation of this is going to help, going to be created by exercise, by elevating the heart rate, cardio. All right. What intensity? We'll talk about it in a minute. When we have the production of brain-derived neurotrophic factor, that means we're probably in an active state. Okay. Neuron activity will increase. You can enrich your environment also by doing this. So physical exercise, mental stimulation, social interactions. You can even drink a cup of coffee. And if you like coffee, you get a little bit of BDNF. Now, exercise, though, cardio, elevated heart rate. The key is elevated heart rate. The equivalent intensity of walking as fast as possible for 25 minutes or more. Now, if you can't do that, you can contact me and I can walk you through processes on how to build up to that. But it doesn't have to be walking. It can be any kind of cardio. You could be sitting and do cardio with shadow boxing. Okay, we do that a lot for people who can't stand up. But it's very important to get this heart rate elevated because the brain-derived neurotrophic factor circulates in the brain. It helps to maintain cellular structure and integrity and longevity so that brain cells don't die as quickly, and maybe it'll prevent brain cells from dying. Okay, we know that we can delay disease progression best through cardio. All right, and on the other side, if we're not moving, I don't know if you've ever experienced this, but I oftentimes do wake up sad, and I just get moving. I'm okay. It just moving creates enough neurochemicals in my brain where I don't feel sad anymore. All right. So I've showed up at somebody's house the other day and she said, "Oh, I just feel so depressed." 20 minutes later, she says, "I feel so great." All we were doing is cardio and not even really intense. Just moving is so important. We want to increase that neuron activity. Let's talk a little bit more about miracle grow for the brain. All right, so it helps to keep certain chemicals in the system longer, so there's a better chance of uptake of those chemicals. That would include medications, friends. So if you're on levodopa, you're on Cinemet, you're on any medication, the elevated heart rate, the BDNF and everything can help the assimilation of the medication so that it gets into your system faster and it stays in it for longer. All right. Again, BDNF helps to prevent some cell death and promote long-term maintenance so disease doesn't progress as quickly. I'm not saying, though, that we can stop disease, okay? But we can likely slow its progression and improve quality of life. And for a lot of people with dementia, Alzheimer's, we're finding that studies are showing, there's a few studies out now, 6 months of exercise, cardio, 5 days a week, 30 minutes per day. Okay, it's 2.5 hours a week, but it's every day, 5 days a week, 6 months. We were seeing, and I'm seeing it also, improvements in memory. All right. All right, let's move forward. So movement lights up the brain. We want to just get moving. We want to just get started because if you're like me, I love being on my couch. I could be a couch potato and be very happy, except that I probably wouldn't feel that good because I wouldn't be moving. So we need to get moving because once you get started, you probably get the energy to keep on going. All right. And hyper-focus. Remember, step number 1, neuroplasticity and learning how to do a new skill or movement, creating a new ability. And then, of course, sleep. Super important. With that, I also want to say, let's go back to this for a minute, that we're experimenting right now. We're finding here in my clinic that if we do anywhere from 30 seconds to 3 minutes of elevated heart rate activities and then do a cognitive exercise, we are seeing improvements in cognition and memory when we implement exercise first in a short bout. Okay. As somebody in here earlier today, we boxed for one minute round, real intense, and then gave words to remember. Boxed for another round. And these words only took like 20 seconds, right? So we do that and then box again. And then we went over and did a cognition chart, took 30 seconds. Boom. Nailed it. We know that exercise can help us to learn. It can help us to learn immediately. Okay. Get that heart rate up, then practice cognitive and memory skills. You're probably going to see a difference. And I hope you don't mind, but I'm going to share something with you. I've written 2 books. First one's called Parkinson's Regeneration Training. You can find out about it at carlsterling.com. You can link over to Amazon and purchase it through there. It's available in Spanish and English. And basically, it's for all people. I happen to talk about Parkinson's in this, but all the modalities, techniques, and strategies of training for the mind, the brain, and the body apply to all people. Okay. And the next one is a second book came out a few months ago called Parkinson's Empowerment Training. Go to carlsterling.com. This subjective. They're not real expensive. Like maybe this is $13 or $14 and the other one's $18 to $20. I don't remember. But this one talks about a lot of other things, like very succinctly talks about neuroplasticity, types and domains of cognition and memory, exercises to do for these. By the way, the books come with a support website that you get if you get the book, and it's free. And also how to manage sleep. And also the second book has a chapter on nutrition in it that's related to Parkinson's. But anyways, I want to say thank you very, very, very much. I hope that this has been helpful. Remember to hyper focus. What are those words again? Green cucumber pickle, yellow corn banana, red tomato pizza. You can remember, right? I remember phone numbers from when I was a teenager. All we need to do is practice. We need to hyper focus. Learn, learn, learn. Pay attention. Do it with intention. This is me getting better. This is me improving my memory, my cognition, my reaction time, my movement, my balance, my mobility, my stability, my agility. This is me living a better quality of life. My brain, my body, my nervous systems are adjusting to this new training where I hyper focus and I benefit from it. This is me getting better so I can be better for others. This is me getting better so that the person who lives with me has a better life. Maybe they're a caregiver for you, and now they don't have to do as much because you're helping yourself better, which means you're helping them, which means they're happier. 70% of people who are caregivers get depression. So practice these things. Visit carlsterling.com. Check out the new university we have coming up very soon. And we have an affiliate program coming up too. Neuromotor Training, carlsterling.com. Thank you everyone so much. And I hope you have a fantastic day.